All right, I just read that Joe Rogan has been fired from the UFC. And I thought I'd give you my take on it. I haven't really been making too many mixed martial arts videos because I haven't really been too excited about anything. We have some interesting fights coming up. You know, nothing too exciting. I don't know, I just haven't. I usually make a video if I feel like talking about something. So anyway, this is an interesting topic, and it's kind of funny. I've talked on this before. Not Joe Rogan specifically getting fired, but I've talked on the UFC. You guys all know I've never liked the UFC. I've never cared for the UFC. However, I'm one of those people, I don't really care about the organization. I want to watch fighting. I will always watch fighting if it's good fighting and if I'm still interested in it. And I made a video also talking on how I don't like this whole UFC getting popular, UFC becoming quote-unquote mainstream. I said it before, I'm going to say it again. I think fighting, mixed martial arts is an underground sport, and it should be left that way. This is something that's underground. It's two people getting in there and fighting. I mean, originally mixed martial arts, was very, very little rules. There definitely wasn't drug testing, and it was really the opposite of a lot of what we had seen in other sports. Like I said, I was a big baseball fan, but then baseball players going on strike. We're already millionaires, and we want more money. And then I see these guys hit the ball, and the shortstop fields it, so they just trot to first base. They're not even hustling, putting some pressure on the shortstop. They're getting paid millions of dollars, and you can't even run hard to first base, for your team. Make the shortstop work a little harder. Maybe he'll fumble it. Maybe he'll throw the ball in the stands because you're forcing him to work a little quicker. You give him all the time in the world to make a perfect throw, and stuff like that. It's just it took me away from conventional sports. And I've always been a fan of skateboarding, which is an type of underground thing. But that was a little bit different, but I did like conventional sports. They're trying to make mixed martial arts conventional, and it's really stupid. Like, they already said, actually when Joe Rogan first, was the announcer, I just thought it was like, man, this is stupid. That's the guy from Fear Factor, and it just seemed a little bit cheesy. But, he's a big fan of fighting, and he's had the position for so long that he seems very well fit for the position. But basically what the UFC has done and has always tried to do is kind of the opposite of as to why we're fans of the sport. Even down to, and this could be said for all mixed martial arts, but judging and scoring, and we don't want to see any of that. We don't want judges. We don't want scoring. We want to see a fight. Either submit somebody or knock somebody out, or just quit. Tap on the ground and just quit. So anyway, Joe Rogan has been fired, and they said Mike Goldberg has been fired too. I never really have cared for either one of these guys. I'm not really a big fan of Joe Rogan. I don't dislike the guy. He has his podcasts. I never really learned anything from those podcasts. It's more of a, I do watch him once in a while. Like I said, I don't dislike Joe Rogan. It's really more of one of those things, he sits down with somebody and they kind of do that drunk talk. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, well, I see it like this, and they're talking, and it's supposed to be like this deep thoughts type stuff. But mostly they're just drunk, or they're smoking weed, or even if they're not drunk or smoking weed, it's that same type of, we're just doing this. They're not really saying anything. Hopefully I'm not rambling on. I'm trying to say something here. And, but now you're taking somebody like that who I never like. They're talking about I just heard somebody was saying Ryan Seacrest is going to be doing interviews at the UFC. I'm like, this is not, this is supposed to be fighting. This is supposed to be the opposite of all that stuff. American Idol and all this mainstream stuff. Fighting is an underground thing. I mean, I was always a fan of fighting for being an underground thing. I did watch the IFL back when that came out, and that was a mainstream thing on TV. But man, it was just different. It was just different. It was so underground that putting something underground on TV didn't make it mainstream. I do believe that the UFC, if they continue to try and go mainstream, they'll lose their fans, and the people that aren't fans now that will become fans are not true fight fans, because if they were true fight fans, you would have been watching fighting all along. So yeah, the UFC, it sucks. I'm not surprised that they fired Joe Rogan. I'm surprised they didn't fire him before. I see these guys, you have the UFC is a big corporation, a big company, and these guys are employees. Have you ever worked for corporate America? I've worked for lots of independent places. I've also worked for corporate America. I was number one in sales at some places that I worked for. And, these guys, you have to be on your best behavior. There's certain things you can't say. You can't swear. You have to be professional. It's a corporation. It's a company. It's as simple as that. And, you got like guys like Joe Rogan, and, they're using profanity. They have these podcasts where they're swearing. I understand that's not when they're working for the UFC, but people associate them with the UFC, and it's always really struck me as odd. Like even Dana White, like the guy will be doing an interview, and he'll be saying the F word and swearing, and I really have always thought that was very strange. Even somebody like Conor McGregor is up there, cussing and like, what? You're supposed to be representing your corporation, your company. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't swear. I'm just telling you I've worked for corporate America before. Corporate America does not want any of that stuff. No good could come from... It's really always struck me as strange, especially Dana White. Maybe Dana White is going to be the next to get fired since he is now... No, they sold the company. I don't know. I know he was part owner, and I don't know if he still is or what that's all about. But if they got rid of Joe Rogan, Dana White may be next on the list, because the way that these guys act is completely unprofessional. I've always thought that. I'm not saying that I dislike that. Actually, it just really struck me as strange. It just is very, very strange. Like, what have you seen, I don't know, what's Dana White's official title? He's not the CEO. Is he the CEO? Something like that. When have you ever seen a CEO of a company? I don't think he's the CEO. I don't know what he is. I don't even know. It doesn't matter. When have you ever seen a CEO or a manager of a manager of a corporation, using profanity and carrying on like you've never seen that? It's the most bizarre thing. So anyway, the UFC, I have noticed in recent years, is... I think it's always sucked. I've never liked the UFC. I've back in the day when you had Strikeforce and Pride and other organizations, the UFC would always act like they were the number one organization. I always said, man, I don't think so. I think better fighters are in other organizations. Now that they've kind of bought up other organizations, they have more of the best fighters, so they can kind of go with that. But it just really is kind of lame. I can't really put my finger on it exactly. Like, mixed martial arts has changed quite a bit. Like, a lot of these guys, they all kind of fight the same. It's a little bit stale. It used to be more exciting. I know it's evolved, but it's a little bit boring, man. I have to be honest with you. Like, I don't get too excited. I do still follow it, but there's so many different fighters, and they all kind of fight the same, and it's just not... And as far as fighting goes, it almost kind of seems like it's taken a step backwards, to the point where I talk about Conor McGregor, and I use Conor McGregor as an example a lot, but Conor McGregor is a stand-up fighter, and you have a stand-up fighter in there demolishing these other guys. It's like, well, we've already seen this. We've already seen the recipe of how to beat stand-up fighters. I mean... Royce Gracie proved that, like, right off the bat, how to beat stand-up fighters. You take them down and you submit them. Like, it's, this has been proven. Even Mirko Cro Cop destroying people in Pride, But, you start to see, what would guys do? Take him down, and that's how you beat the guy. You take him down, and he had decent ground game, but that's just, so it's really strange. I mean, you have like Conor McGregor, and he's in there, these guys are standing there trading punches with a guy that's a striker when they have ground game. It's really bizarre. Like, this has already been proven. So it's almost like they've taken a step backwards. Like the people fighting now, like they missed like what's already been learned. and in other words, yeah, I mean, if you took guys from Pride and you put them in there with today's UFC fighters, the rules are different, but the mentality of the fighters, I think everything about the individual that got into mixed martial arts is a completely different person than the guys that are getting into it now. And I don't think that's a good thing. I mean, the guys that were fighting before were going in there fighting for no money just because they were, into karate and they've been doing karate for 10 years and they want to go in there and, they just want to hit somebody in the head. They just want to hurt somebody and just kick somebody, and they don't even care about getting paid. And that is way more exciting. I mean, I remember people into martial arts, like when I was a kid, like these people were into martial arts. I mean, martial arts is supposed to be like a Bruce Lee, self-defense but a lot of people that get into martial arts, they just want to learn to kick somebody's ass. And then after they learn to kick somebody's ass, especially throw kicks and punches, man, they can't wait for somebody to mess with them because they're going to light them up. I mean, it even happened to me. I was training boxing, and then I got in a situation to where I got in a fist fight in a body shop that I was working at. This was a number of years ago, and I got in a situation to where I couldn't, just walk away. It wasn't on the street. And, something was going to go down. I ended up lit this guy up. I lit this guy up with punches so fast, he never seen it coming. I went 2 jabs, and then I hit him with a straight right, and he was flying. He flew backwards about 15 foot. He ran out of the shop, and I was just like, I'm not the type of person to hit somebody. I definitely didn't hit him for no reason, but, when you train fighting and when you have that skill, I mean, it's like, it's pretty hard not to use it. See, like I was training boxing, and I learned the speed bag. I learned all basic boxing for a few years. For a few years, I was working at that, and then all of a sudden, like that, it just came out. And it's like it was a really good feeling too, because not only did I defend myself, I put this guy in his place, and all that. I ended up getting fired, but. For it. I didn't get any trouble, with the police or anything like that. But, so like I think, guys that were originally getting into martial arts, that's where they were coming from. And it was a completely different type of person. And, even Joe Rogan, because we're talking about Joe Rogan was, what was he into, like, I don't know if he was from Kung Fu. I think he was doing Kung Fu or something. I don't remember exactly. But he trained martial arts when he was younger, and he's very familiar with it, so it makes sense that he would work in mixed martial arts. In other words, when he was training mixed martial arts, it was before he was a host of any TV shows. It's before he was famous. He wasn't doing it for any money, so he kind of comes from that older schooler generation. Older schooler generation. So by replacing him with I heard someone said, with I don't know who they're going to replace him with, but although I will say Joe Rogan and Mike Goldberg, I've never really cared for them that much as announcers. I actually liked the guys from Strikeforce quite a bit, and it doesn't really matter to me. I just like them. I just want to watch fighting. I don't have anything against Joe Rogan. I'm not surprised that he's fired. This is a sign of the UFC truly going corporate, though, because the way that these guys have acted, you think they would have been fired a long time ago. I mean, it's the really strangest thing. Like, you will see someone get fined. Conor McGregor got fined for throwing water bottles, But then Dana White will stand up there literally the next day and he's using the F word. Like, I mean, any corporation, like, you think you'd be fired. I mean, if I went to work, when I worked for corporate America and just started, I worked in a health club, in a very high-end health club, a couple of them, and if I was just out there on the floor just saying, oh yeah, and using the F word, profanity around members of the club, I mean, I would have been fired like that. I mean, there's certain ways that, whereas if you went and worked in a private gym, like a muscle gym, you could maybe stand there or if you're the owner, you could stand there and swear all you want. You're the owner, But you can't do that for corporate America. You cannot act like that in corporate America. It just doesn't work that way. So I'm not surprised he's fired at all. And I've always wondered throughout the years, how come these guys aren't fired? How come they don't get in trouble? It really has never made much sense. But basically, corporate America completely sucks, and I don't have any interest in it. And the more corporate the UFC is going to go, the less interested I'm going to be. It's true. I mean, I'm a huge fight fan, so I haven't lost interest yet. But I tell you what, I'm more excited to see Fedor versus Matt Mitrione. I made a video on that. Did I make a video? Yeah, I'm more excited about that upcoming fight than. They just made Jose Aldo the champion. He didn't even fight for the belt. They just said, you're the champion. Like, okay, well, that doesn't work that way. I mean, you can't just make somebody the champion. Well, that's what they do. They did that with Ronda Rousey. They're just like, Ronda Rousey had like not even a handful of fights in her lifetime. They said, well, you're the champ. I'm like, okay, well, all these other girls are in other organizations, And then they pumped up Ronda Rousey so much that she had so much hype that these girls were coming in there. They were like so overwhelmed by the hype that they just weren't even fighting the same. I think that happened with Conor McGregor too. I mean, they hyped the guy up so much that the people get in there and they're just almost like, how can they even deal with something that's hyped that much? It's crazy. So I don't know, man. The UFC sucks. It's always sucked. Joe Rogan has got fired. I'll see you later.